All right, so anyway, it's up on the table. Then I got the turbo. It's just kind of loosely sitting. I done cut that off right there because that did not fit. But basically the same displacement of what the Indy car used to be. I needed to just frankly take a break from YouTube because after doing YouTube for 4 years, it has become abundantly and crystal clear to me that the nature of the algorithms of all social media channels has influenced and infiltrated society everywhere from children to politicians. And none of it is positive because the nature of the algorithms work by keeping people fighting and addicted at all times. And that's not constructive or helpful for any civilization. Yeah, ooh. What's up, people? So I'm back with the Honda K-Series IndyCar swap build thing, yeah, whatever. This is Genius Garage's car, part of the nonprofit public educational program I founded 10 years ago to help college students actually get real-world experience with tools and things in the real world that they don't get in school because school sucks. I decided to take on this project to do all of the structural machining and engineering to be able to utilize the engine in said IndyCar chassis. The reason being is, and I mean this very respectfully for students and not respectfully for school, even the best college engineering student isn't experienced enough to be able to do that level of engineering and have it really work well. So I wanted to use this car and platform for the ability for the students to have something to be able to actually build a motor and make mistakes and it not be astronomically expensive in money and time. So I got to make the platform robust and reliable, and that relates to doing the machining of the pan and adapter plates and trunnions and all that jazz and kind of figuring it out so that I can get it to a point, and then it's a really cool project. So I'm going to show you guys what I'm working on right now, and I hope you guys like it. I know you do. You want some of this action. Yes! All right, so anyway, it's up on the table, and this is basically what it looked like last time you guys watched the video, but a lot has happened since then. I'm just gonna kind of start showing you guys. So down here, this big hunk of billet, oh yeah, look at that aluminum, is in fact also the oil pan of the motor. However, this is dry sump. Now what dry sump means is you've got all these crazy pumps here that suck all the oil out of the motor as fast as possible after it goes down. It doesn't just go down and sit in the pan like a normal street car. Yes, that is a normal street car every day. Anyway, it's also wet sump, like an everyday street car. So this is dry sump, and so like this oil pump here, that's the suck, that's the blow. I'm not gonna be smart today, I'm having fun, and that's the bypass valve adjustment. But there is one pump right here. There's another pump here, and there's another pump here. This one is for pressure. So this one takes the oil from the oil tank, which is up in here, and brings it all over and blah, 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 and pumps it into the motor after it like filters it and cools it down and stuff. And then this pump and this pump are internally combined right here. So it sucks here, if you can see it, it sucks here and it sucks here, and then it blows out this way. Now what this does is it puts it back into the tank so it can swirl and get rid of like dirt and bubbles and stuff. But this and this, where it sucked from, come from these two bottom places of the pan. Now this piece of billet aluminum is actually all hogged out in a fancy way so it can, you know, clear the crankshaft and stuff while the engine is like running and stuff. So that's what it does. And all that oil sloshing around and spinning around, as in the case of this, is just gonna rob horsepower and slosh around and potentially go in a place where you're not gonna have oil pressure in a turn, which sucks. And now I gotta fix that on my car. But on this, it's always sucking from something designed specifically for high G loading, and that's why race cars have dry sump oil systems, so you don't have any starvation in cornering and braking and acceleration and stuff, as well as you get the oil out of the engine really quick. You can also pull a vacuum on the engine. You do a bunch of stuff that create more horsepower, so it's more horsepower, but it's more complicated and you have to have a belt drive and all that jazz. But in that pan, I know you can't see it right now, maybe I have a picture to show you. There is a steel tray, kind of like a windage tray, to like slice the oil as it's slinging through the air and give it a place to puddle and pool to be sucked from that. So we had to like relief and port the areas of the pan by hand and drill and tap it and put it in and all that and clearance it and fit it. Anyway, the motor is sealed to that pan, which is really cool because the K-Series has a perfect flat mounting plane that we can mount it to that pan, which is bolted. Now, this pan a young man did a couple of years ago and he struggled with these. all the parts he did, there were some things he didn't check that didn't work. But fortunately, we were able to salvage the aluminum by drilling new pinholes. So you remember these pins right here on the chassis, these are structural. Now these two have this steel collar, so the pins are actually smaller and you see the nut on it. But there are 4 pins just like this down low. They go into that pan, and then there's a pocket underneath, which maybe I can show you. Oh, we got two of them. I drilled a hole in the table. Look at that, there's a hole right there. And in that hole, I can put a wrench and a nut up in there and bolt the thing together. So it's bolted together and it's sitting on this table nice and flat, right? And then this adapter plate here, which is bigger than it needs to be, so we can cut stuff away and drill holes to make structural elements and whatnot. So that's the adapter plate to make everything work. But currently, there's a clutch in there that's all correct and fits and works. And that's attached and the engine's attached and sealed and everything's great. But I'm gonna have to take it apart again because I decided to move the structural piece up a little higher to make more room for the Venturi tunnels, which are on this car. So this car will have an under tray right here, right? And as part of the under tray, there's Venturi tunnels that go through here and create massive downforce for speed and glory. Except I've got this hunk of aluminum in the way and that's stupid. Means I'm stupid. Not really, I just didn't care. I just wanted it to work so the car can be an awesome rolling laboratory for the students. So they can focus on the engine and engine building and figuring out how to make horsepower and do cool stuff like that. And if one blows up, and we're not gonna try to blow it up, it's not the end of the world because the K-Series stock like this out of a junkyard is about $1,000, which $1,000 is like coughing and using a Kleenex with normal race cars. So it's nice to be able to have this opportunity to learn. So anyway, you'll also notice that I got the turbo, it's just kind of loosely sitting in the bell housing. This is where the single turbo of the original Champ car and Indy cars would have gone. Now what's really neat is ours actually fits pretty good spatially. Like there's room for a turbo in there. And then this would be the inlet for the one side. So basically this K-Series is like half the cylinders of a V8 that would have been this in it originally, but basically the same displacement of what the Indy car used to be. So it theoretically has the ability to make the same power as the old one did, but there's gonna be some drawbacks. So gonna keep it chill. Keep in mind this is a stock block, stock head and all, so it's only gonna be able to take so much power for so long. Also, and I know all you racers out there are like, I made 600 horsepower on my stock engine and I drag race my Civic and I'm really fast. Okay, that's cool, dude. But your drag race in your Civic's gonna last like 13 seconds. This thing has to be able to make that kind of power for like half an hour on a track. So there's a difference between overstressing something for 10 seconds and a half an hour. So we got to keep it somewhat reasonable. And I know that most YouTubers are like, I made 1,000 horsepower on the dyno. Look at my brain power and also the size of my lower brain. Aren't I cool? No, not really. What's cooler is to have something that works and is reliable and can go out on the track and win races. And in this circumstance, it's cooler to have a great platform where people can learn. And also doesn't cost $1 zillion if somebody makes a mistake, which is cool for being a K-Series, but it's still a lot of work. Now, some other things are going on. You see the turbo kind of loosely sitting in here, and this with the V-band. Now, you can see the collector here, which is gonna have to go right about yonder. Keep in mind there's gonna be Venturi tunnels down here. And we've got the little stubby guys sitting here that are going to have to be cut and welded. So you can see how we're going to have to start figuring out and forming the tubular headers to go in there. And then what it'll have is it'll have its wastegate right about here with another exhaust system, teeny tiny one for the wastegate. And then of course the exhaust system's coming out here. And then on the other side, what we got going on, this is what we're exploring right now. This is the stock manifold off the Acura for the intake, right? And it's too long, it's got a bunch of crap on it that's no good. But I done cut that off right there because that did not fit. That does not fit. But we could cap it off and we could theoretically chop the whole plenum off and make our own plenum and figure out the flange and put that wherever you want it to be. Because it's gonna need an intercooler, okay? Because this is now a gasoline car, not methanol. No, I don't want to run methanol because it'll end up corroding a bunch of stuff and you have to pickle it and we have to put a new fuel bladder in it and it costs thousands of dollars and it's a big pain in my ass and everybody's ass and for no extra learning. We're not doing it right now, okay? We're gonna make it run on gas because that's a lot more pleasant for now. But gas is hotter, runs hotter. Everything goes hotter than methanol. So this car had been modified because it had a stock block push rod V8 in it. Now, basically on this side, with the exception of the fan, this is the stock radiator that would have been in the Champ car back when. This is the water radiator, would have been used for the motor. That is an oil cooler, obviously used for the engine. Now, the panel, the side pod that goes on it, is nicely sculpted to create a low pressure back here. And then obviously this is sculpted nicely to get pretty darn clean air here from the wing shooting right there through them suspension, going in there and blah, 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 right? So, but this side, this is a non-stock radiator that actually I had CNR make a million years ago. That's also the company now known as PWR, who is currently making the radiator and oil cooler for the Viper, that totally normal stock everyday street car over there, which I'll be excited to show you guys pretty soon. Anyway, so it's a super duper efficient radiator in place, so it's all water. And this radiator and that radiator were like barely kind of able to cool at 850 horsepower at the wheels, 410 gas burning Chevy V8 in it, because it was never designed for that kind of ridiculousness. But a K-Series on gasoline that's turbocharged, that's not making that much horsepower, because we're realistic human beings and not just idiots chasing an algorithm on the internet for fame and glory because we think we're cool on a dyno. Did I just say that out loud? Yeah, I think I did. Anyway, so we're gonna do that. I think it's gonna work great. Okay, so we got enough water cooling for sure for this, right? We've maximized that, but we may end up not having enough oil cooling for the motor because that's all we got. Now, if that's not enough, then my plan is we can throw a water oil heat exchanger in there, which will both help cool the oil and will help the oil heat up faster, because when the water heats up first, that'll help warm up the oil quicker than the oil would normally warm up, and then kind of keep it at homeostasis. So the Corvette up there of Genius Garages has a water oil heat exchanger instead of an oil cooler that's air oil. And it does just fine because the radiator is big enough. But if you put a heat exchanger in there for the oil system, you are then putting more heat energy into your water engine cooling system. So you better have plenty of cooling to do that. So that's an option if we have enough cooling. Now, the other thing is, since we're turbocharging this hoo-ha puppy, it's going to need an intercooler of some kind to cool down that charge. We want to do it, especially if we got these silly little motors, right, that are stock and stuff. We don't want detonation and all that crap. We want more power. So I think what we're going to do is do a water air intercooler because they can be smaller. So what we're going to have to do is figure out how much space will be right here in the side pod. There's going to be a little space here and above the Venturi tunnel, because there's your intake for the turbo, right? Oh yes, turbines, yes. Okay, so anyway, that's the intake, right? And we'll have to put a filter or a screen or something over here. And then the compression will come out this hole, which used to be the exhaust for the left bank of the Indy car a million years ago. Back when the compression would have come out of here and gone into the plenum, which would have been right here, and it had your blow-off valve on the Indy car up there, blah, 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 blah. Anyway, so it's going to come out this way, since it's 4-cylinder, and there's only exhaust on one side. And we can put a water air heat exchanger right here, so it'll be a super short distance, bam, heat exchanger, bam, plenum. Although we're going to have to remake that and stuff. Now keep in mind that we don't have the structure in here with the tubes yet. It's going to have to be a tube that goes from about there to that point and about there to that point, and it'll be a fatter tube than this. And then that'll go there. Now I know I'm using words like fatter tube and acting like I don't know anything about anything, but like, I ain't trying to impress you guys. If you want to be impressed, I could start to use longer words, talk all sophisticated like, or you could just trust to have an inkling of what I'm doing. That's for you to decide and me not to really care. So let's move on. Also, we got rid of the mechanical water pump, which is no longer there. There's this billet aluminum plate right there that we got from Racers R Us on the internet, and then this hole is where the water whoosh, will go in. That's cool. That one's a breather because it needs to breathe apparently. There is the, we got a nice alternator off an S2000, but we got an underdrive pulley because this thing's going to rev high. There is our harmonic dampener. I hope you can see that right down yonder, right there, right? Which we want because it's a stock crankshaft, and we've got a funky clutch on it. It's a 4.5-inch diameter clutch, so it's really small, but it's got 3 discs, and the flywheel sticks out about that far. So you're kind of changing the harmonic and the nature of the whole thing. So having a dampener up here is probably a good idea. And then we'll have this great multi-rib belt to drive the alternator. And then this is the water pump originally was used on this for the V8. It's an electric one, which we'll be able to mount up in here and not elsewhere, like the DMX song, up in here, not elsewhere. So that will pump water into there, and it'll come out and go into radiators and cool and stuff. I know I'm not sounding smart, don't ask me. I think it's funnier to do this. So that's what's going down, and I wanted you guys to see it. I'm pretty excited. The other thing that makes me pretty excited is, so these AN lines that were utilized here, they're big hosses, they go to the radiator and stuff. We'll actually be able to reuse a lot of these. At worst, we'll have to get some new hose and make them longer, because like, for instance, this radiator hose will probably go up this way, okay? because the hot water the hot air comes out of here, and the hot water comes out of here. So hot water will come out of there, and I have to Y off and go to that radiator over there, and Y off and go to that radiator. We're gonna run the radiators in parallel, not series, because of the heat differential, I think makes it more efficient. That's how it works in my brain, that's what I'm gonna do. So this one here will then go to the intake. We'll have to make a water intake manifold. This is the old water intake manifold. You see it comes from one radiator and comes over here. Oh, it goes to a Y, and in there, and there's that hoo-ha. So anyway, we're gonna have it go into the water pump there, and the other one will come from over there. And then here's your water expansion tank up yonder, which has a really neat bleeder line here that goes to the top of the radiator, actively bleed that radiator. And guess what it has on that one? It also has one to actively bleed, yes. So here's the overflow. There's the circulation tank, pretty neat. And then with the super duper obsessive compulsive overflow going way to the back between the wing stanchions, posts, thingy doos that hold the wing. Yeah, so that's mounted there, and then we'll have another bleeder. Whoosh, we like it to bleed, which will go here to the top of this manifold. It'll help bleed the top of the head. And then depending on how we orient this water pump, there's another possibility to bleed it here, but if we orient it a cool way, we won't need it. So I'm pretty excited about that. What else? I don't know, that's about it. No, it's going pretty well. It does take time, these things. You have to take it apart, put it back together, take it apart, put it together, find things, you find other things you need to change. Like for instance, see that big honking piece of aluminum right there? This here honker, that's the adapter plate from the motor to the transaxle. You can see the 6 bolts, well 3 of them on one side, of the transaxle, whoosh, they bolt the plate. And you can see big honking bolts here, and then like studs that go in the motor there and over there, and then a couple of big hosses down there on either side. So it's robust, right? And then I drilled this hole down low because that was where I was gonna run a tube for the trunnion up to here, and then another one from here to here to that point. So it'll be super strong, and we're not gonna twist the motor, everything's gonna be great. However, Venturi tunnels. So I've been thinking about this, and I think I can actually move this point up here because, you know, there's a lot of aluminum down there, it's really strong, it's gonna be just fine. So that'll be good. But also, you notice the X marks the spot. I gotta cut out this chunk here because it's really unnecessary. You can see this just doesn't need to be here. I need the room because that's your exhaust inlet from the header collector. You know, you could do that, but I'm not gonna because it doesn't fit, it looks stupid. I'm gonna do it like this, so it has a bend, and I can put the wastegate here, but this needs to get cut off, and then I'll sort of like chamfer the edge of the plate and then decide where that structural hole is going to be, and then what I'm doing with the rest of it. So that was the reason to make like the pan and the adapter plate extra hefty, because I can, you know, chew on it as I go and figure out how to make it work well, which is way better than spending the next 1.5 years in CAD. I can just work on it a day a week with a student and turn this into something awesome that'll totally work in a much shorter time. But I wanted to show you that, guys. I hope you had fun kind of seeing what's up, but I'm really excited and proud of this package. Yeah, guys make tons of horsepower with K-Series, and that's super duper cool and all, but keep in mind that this needs to be a couple of things. One, it's a learning experience for the Genius Garage students, and I wanted to build it in this to get it to that place where it's actually of use for them, and it's a project that they can bite off and actually chew it, if that makes sense, not more than they can chew. So they can get the most out of that experience, because we have the other cars like, you know, the Corvette up yonder, and then the F1 car and the Daytona prototype and the sprint car and the go-karts and stuff in the other room, to be able to learn great and valuable lessons from that. So I'm really excited where this is going, and I hope you guys are enjoying it too. Thank you to all the well-wishers and encouragement from people that wanted me to get back in the saddle and making videos. This is fun. So I hope you like this one. I'm just kind of doing guerrilla style one-hit wonder with it. I needed to just frankly take a break from YouTube because after doing YouTube for 4 years, it has become abundantly and crystal clear to me that the nature of the algorithms of all social media channels has influenced and infiltrated society everywhere from children to politicians, and none of it is positive because the nature of the algorithms work by keeping people fighting and addicted at all times, and that's not constructive or helpful for any civilization. And I can't stomach that anymore. Even on my own channel, it drives me bonkers. So thank you for letting me have the patience while I go feed the squirrels and try to feel better about life again. Also, do not be a victim to the algorithm. I would suggest that you just unsubscribe from every channel, I don't know, over 250,000 subscribers or whatever, because all of those cool channels that are being real and not slaves to the algorithm are there underneath and hidden. So we're just gonna have to defeat the algorithm and bring society back to something that's cool. And for all of you young people that don't remember what life was like before the internet, it was really great because you could be who you are as a person and not feel bad about being yourself. Think about that. And yeah, before the internet existed, people weren't all racist, terrible, psychopath individuals. People were actually a lot kinder and got together and socialized, and they couldn't just block somebody. We had to solve our differences. So maybe remember that. Anyway, Genius Garage is gonna be cool this year, and I'm making some videos, and I hope you enjoy this. Please subscribe if you feel this is worth your time. If not, thanks for watching. See ya.